All right, now let's get to Mr. Shakur. Obviously, you know that this is a very controversial man. What's your take on him?
It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, bitch, I'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. 2Pac-alypse, it's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, and we'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. 2Pac-alypse, I'm a outlaw, immortal. Shit, I'm immortal. Like video game with guns, with a swing of sword, yo. Like Jesus Christ, I paid the price. A bunch of fingers bitten off, but they ain't raised you right. Like Jesus Christ, I paid the price. A bunch of fingers bitten off, but they ain't raised you right. They scripture written on the wall, the blood, they say I'm blooded. I'm on my bike now. She telling me she love me, you wanna fight now? But now that we know, yo, take me like a motherfucking eagle. As I soar through the skies above, getting love for Crips, cause my ties with blood. Plus, cause the rift between me and the boys. Ain't no peace in the city streets, just go to sleep and dream, baby boy, just dream of a world destroyed. If a tracker can't beat me, how can a nigga defeat me? They got to speed run, well, we're trying to eat me. It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, bitch, I'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, and we'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. I remember what my papa told me. Blasphemy at last free. To pull the trigger, above the law, outlaw with the flicker. Burn at you for those that think I'm deserve retribution. Our revolution, 10 days of evolution. No longer human, this end game include tales of the wolf man. The police can't kill me, a werewolf can. You let the dogs out who they finna get y'all. Werewolf, they ain't catch the sun at the hedgehog. They tortured me, and now that I'm unstoppable. Catwalking, Billy rock and roll. The cars are closing in like the walls around me. We're America's most wanted across the county. Bitch, I'm Neo. I take to the motherfucking sky. It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, bitch, I'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, and we'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life.
And that's what started.
Black people are mysterious, white people.
Expect me, nigga, like you expect Jesus to come back. Expect me, nigga, I'm coming.
They know. Prodigal son has returned. I'm alive. The ghost is walking around.
My instinct is to blast you because I didn't like Shakur. I thought he led a life of dissolution, and I'm not going to say he deserved what he got, but I'm not surprised.
I'm a werewolf. There's silver bullets in that gun. You have to use it on me tonight. Then I change.
It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, bitch, I'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life. It's time to spread my wings to the fly. Take bullets, and we'll never die. Torture for 10 days, brought back to life.
Because of her Facebook post following President Obama's re-election. Quote, another 4 years of this N-word. Maybe he'll be assassinated.
You niggas turn on each other, you stupid. You can all go under. And it's true, you have to understand this.
It's insane.
The book segment today, a very unusual college course. 50 University of California students have signed up for a pass-fail course, History 98, that will study the murdered rap star 2Pac Shakur. Fox Facts. Mr. Shakur was shot dead in September of 1996 in Las Vegas. His killer has not yet been arrested. The rapper had a long rap sheet himself. He served 8 months in prison and was charged with a variety of offenses, including the shooting of 2 Atlanta policemen.
In a bizarre twist of events, rap singer 2Pac Shakur checked himself out of Bellevue Hospital late Wednesday night after the 23-year-old was shot 5 times early that same morning inside the lobby of a Times Square recording studio.
Going completely crazy. What? Now, I'm really sorry to be upsetting you, but I have to warn you.
Warn me?
We were attacked by a werewolf.
I'm not listening to this.
On the moors, we were attacked by a lycanthrope, a werewolf. I was murdered, an unnatural death, and now I walk the earth in limbo until the werewolf's curse is lifted.
Shut up.
The wolf's bloodline must be severed. The last remaining werewolf must be destroyed. It's you, David.
What?
Please believe me.
Welcome to the Legendary Creatures. In this episode, we'll talk about werewolves. The werewolf is among the most terrifying and captivating of mythological creatures. But what do we really know about werewolves? A werewolf, also known as a lycanthrope, is a mythological or folkloric human with the ability to shapeshift into a wolf or anthropomorphic wolf-like creature, either deliberately or after being placed under a curse or affliction via bite or scratch from a werewolf. The popular definition of a werewolf is a man who transforms himself into a wolf or is transformed into a wolf under the influence of the full moon. The werewolf is generally held as a European character, although its lore spread through the world in later times. Shapeshifters similar to werewolves are common in tales from all over the world and most notably amongst Native Americans, though most of them involved animal forms other than wolves. The myth of the werewolf exists in almost all cultures of the world under a variety of names. Most well known are Wendigo, Rougarou, Mycob, Varkalak, Vilcaces, and the list goes on. According to folklore, were-persons are always appallingly dangerous in their bestial form, and may even eat their own human children or other relatives. Some of the first references to man changing into wolves are found in ancient Roman and Greek literature and mythology. For example, in the 2nd century BC, the Greek geographer Pausanias relates the story of Lycaon, who was transformed into a wolf because he had ritually murdered a child. In accounts by the Bibliotheca and Ovid Metamorphosis, Lycaon served human flesh to Zeus and was transformed as punishment for the crime of cannibalism and impiety. During the Middle Ages, Europe was under the dark shadow of superstition. Towns were underdeveloped and people lived near the woods. The fear of wolves was like a nightmare. This was compounded by the fear of black magic, and as a result, many were accused of witchcraft. In France alone, between 1520 and 1630, some 30,000 individuals were labeled as werewolves. One of the most lurid and famous werewolf trials in history was in Germany, that of Peter Stube in 1589. Under the threat of torture, Peter confessed to killing and eating 14 children and 2 pregnant women along with their fetuses. His execution on October 31st, 1589 was one of the most brutal on record. I will spare you the gruesome details, but feel free to look it up if you are so inclined. The most famous methods for curing a victim of a werewolf were medicinal, usually via the use of wolfsbane, surgical, or by exorcism. As with most surgical procedures from that era, the cures advocated by medieval medicinal practitioners often proved to be fatal to the patients. In present day, most fiction describes werewolves as vulnerable to silver weapons, but highly resistant to other injuries. This feature does not appear in stories about werewolves before the 19th century. Unlike vampires, werewolves are not generally thought to be harmed by religious artifacts, such as the crucifix or holy water. The first feature film to use anthropomorphic werewolves was Werewolf in London in 1935, which stands as the base of a growing number of fans for such films. Maybe you remember the comedy horror film An American Werewolf in London, or the cult film Wolf, in which Jack Nicholson played one of the best roles of his life. To this day, werewolves are among the favorite characters for games, artists, and literature. In seriousness, I must close with the following disclaimer. Remember that if your neighbor tries to bite you or starts howling to the full moon, you should fetch a priest or get out the wolfsbane, because he or she might be suffering from clinical lycanthropy. Stay tuned for another episode of Legendary Creatures, because next time we'll talk about Kelpies.